Have a mover and a seconder for those, Councillor Mawson and Councillor Tapani. All those in favour? Aye. Carried. Thank you. So we will start off with, I think we have Alan. Alan, if you'd like to come up, we've got a space up the front here for you. Thank you. And just a reminder to everyone that we have 10 minutes of speaking time with 1 bell at 8 minutes and 2 bells at 10. Alan, you're from Cycle Aware Hawke's Bay. And thank you.
Right, well, thank you for the opportunity to speak to our submission. Our group, Cycle Aware Hawke's Bay, comprises people who cycle frequently on our roads and pathways, and our mission is to seek greater safety when we choose to cycle. In our submission, we seek 3 key things: the development of an active transportation strategy. The last cycle strategy for Napier was dated a decade ago and disappeared from the council website about 4 years ago. I came to Napier in 2015, it was there. About 2016-17, it vaporised. So over the last 5 years, I've had no idea really of the strategic direction of where council is spending its money on cycling and where the safety infrastructure is going. And yet the council's pedal power is a key part of the city vision statement to build a strong cycling culture and make journeys by bike safe and enjoyable. With the Napier District Plan Review commencing this year, it's imperative that a wider active transport strategy encompassing walking, cycling, and the new modes of transport that are now being used is embarked upon as a matter of urgency. Our pathways are envied by other centres, and the early vision and investment by council is to be commended. But we still lack a comprehensive cycle network. Most importantly, the on-road cycle infrastructure within our city needs an urgent refocus from an active transportation perspective. With the dangerous mix of heavy transport, pedestrians, cyclists, e-bikes and scooters, paint will not be protection, and all the commute routes into the city, excepting the Marine Parade, compose or involve inherent dangers. We seek in our submission a reduction in speed limits, and this is a relatively simple and cost-effective way to achieve safer and more livable streets. Lowering speed makes our roads safer for everyone and reduces serious harm when collisions occur between vehicles and pedestrians or cyclists. Auckland and Wellington have recently reduced speed limits to 30k in their CBDs, and some areas 20k per hour, and Napier should do the same. We feel there is a need for the council to introduce a council-facilitated active transport forum. Engagement is the key to good planning, and we urge the council to establish a forum and engage with the walking and cycling communities on a regular basis and discuss development opportunities within our city. Many cities, including Hastings, have already got these types of forums established. In closing, the address by Dr. Robin Tolley at the Walking and Cycling Summit held here in Napier last March reinforced the benefits of bringing people back into the conversation about the use of publicly owned urban space. We suggest the Active Transportation Forum would achieve exactly that. Napier has the potential to become one of the best places in New Zealand to ride a bike. We've made a good start, but there is still a lot of work to be done for those travelling by bike, for it to be safe and enjoyable. We've had 3 cyclist deaths in the city limits within 2 years, and that shows there is room for improvement. Developing an active transport strategy, reducing speed limits, and forming an active transport forum will help Napier to become a national leader in active transport, will create a more vibrant and safe city, and will improve the quality of life for everyone who lives here. I urge you to take that action to achieve this vision. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Any questions from councillors? No, I think you've got off very lightly, Alan.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation, and we'll be deliberating tomorrow.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alan.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have it on good authority. Our next submitter is just arriving, so we'll pause for a minute to allow that. Kia ora. Hi, welcome. So this is our Napier Civic Choir presentation, just over at the table over here, guys. And just a reminder, we have 10 minutes of speaking time. There'll be one bell at 8 and 2 at 10.
Okay. I've got some information here for anyone that does require a copy. Hey, Richard.
Yeah, well,
Thank you. We should have your written submissions as
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so I'm Dimphy, this is Jose. We're representing the Napier Civic Choir. In support of our submission for funding, we would like to bring the following points to your attention. We're requesting funding from the council for $10,000 annually for the next 3 years to the Napier Civic Choir to provide certainty for the foreseeable future, enable the committee to plan quality classical music performances for the next 3 years with confidence, and maintain high interest concerts at affordable prices and also free admission for children. As has been mentioned in our submission, we are proud to be the Choir of Napier. We have been operating since 1967 and feel that we have a strong connection with the city, promoting cultural and artistic performances to a very high standard. The City Council has formally recognised the choir as the Napier City Choir. Bill Dalton in 2017, when he was still running, he wrote that in a letter which we've also included. We are available for community-based events such as citizenship ceremonies, Anzac Day celebrations, Christmas carols for the CBD late shopping, and central inner city church services. We value the city's financial and other support. We feel that we are an asset to our community, and we have significantly increased community participation and engagement. Our choir consists of all ages, and membership is maintained at around 70 to 80 people, plus students that we also invite to attend. In 2019, we developed a 5-year plan to which our goals was developing and promoting the singing, including children and youth participation, and we are doing that currently. As a long-standing community group with an increasing national and international reputation, the choir enhances the city's heritage and music traditions. Our own highly qualified European-trained and talented artistic music director, Jose Aparicio, who now resides in Napier, has also significantly improved the performances and provides attractive and appealing programs for all through its reputation for high-value, quality, enjoyable concerts. The choir promotes Napier City as the cultural capital. With this in mind, we feel that the choir attracts talent to the city of Napier. Our task is to publicly promote and advance the practice and performance of choral works. We are not only achieving this, but are producing a vast range of musical works to a very high standard, and feel that we have a unique position offering a choir that also sings with an orchestra. Supporting the choir means enriching the musical opportunities and experiences available to a very wide local audience, and the Napier Civic Choir matches and exceeds in some ways what is currently available in other major cities. Napier Choir, incidentally, is half the size of the Orpheus Choir in Wellington, but Wellington have 3.5 times more population. During COVID-19, as well as many other organisations, we could not continue to meet and perform. We've recognised the the need for normality in people's lives, and we're celebrating that by making sure we do regular Zoom meetings, and we have been able to do that, and are now able to prepare for 2 concerts for Napier and the surrounding towns this year. It has been pointed out by the choir's auditor that we are on the edge of sustainability. The choir itself helps itself by reducing costs, raising funds from gaming venues and trusts, and from assistance in kind from businesses. We fund our concerts in 2 major ways, the intention of being to cover costs and not incur a deficit budget. Our approach of requesting funds on a concert-by-concert basis is necessary. Council funding would not only enable the choir to continue to give the community quality, justly deserved concerts, but would also provide financial security and therefore the means to continue to operate. Napier Civic Choir wishes to work with the council to support the city's profile and enhance its future and culture. Fully return talent to our own city within the framework of strong, demonstrable council connections. Thanks for the opportunity of listening to us. I'd just like to pass you on to Jose for a few more words.
Morena, as a representative of the Napier Civic Choir, especially on the concert platform, I have the privilege to get in contact with a lot of visitors to Hawke's Bay that come to our concerts, and it's astounding the amount of them that have actually decided to move in the last 10 years to live in Napier because of obviously the best lifestyle in the world is it's Hawke's Bay and especially Napier. But not only that, is that when someone from a big city makes the decision to move out of a big center, they are a little bit hesitant that they are going to lose the offer, the cultural offer that a big center offers. And the amount of comments I've had in the last 10 years saying people that this was the detonant, the concert series that the Napier Civic Choir and the Hawke's Bay Orchestra and other entities in Hawke's Bay put on offer for our community has been the detonant that has made it for them to decide to come and live in Hawke's Bay is phenomenal. It's I'm privileged that I can actually have access to those comments. But I think in the times that we live, it is really, really vital we support our culture, which generally is the first thing that suffers in situations like we are experiencing all over the world. I have so many colleagues over the world that are suffering the consequences like everybody else in every sector. But unfortunately, the sectors that suffer the most are the ones that seem that can be not necessary. I really, really appreciate that you have given us this time this morning, and I wish you all the best for the times that are coming ahead of us. And thank you again for having us both.
Are there any questions?
Kia ora. Thank you, Diffie and Jose. That was great. Would you mind, just a question from me, just clarifying the financial support you're receiving from Napier City at the moment? I see in your annual report, I think you've got just over 6,500 for the last 2 financial years. Is that through a service agreement with council? Or
That was, I believe it was my predecessor that set it up. I believe that was another tri-annual thing that was the funding that was given to us was $6,500 per year to go towards the running of our concerts. And we have, obviously been involved with the Anzac Day celebrations, the inner churches services, the other things that I mentioned, as well as promoting the youth to join in. We're very strong in promoting youth and getting them involved as much as we like and can. And that's something that I think an ageing population, predominantly in our choir, is really enjoying as well. That input there.
Lovely, thank you. Are there any other questions from members? No, I think we're right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, do we have Joan? Joan, hi, and Mark. Welcome. So we have Joan Plowman and Mark Cleary from the Napier Pilot City Trust.
Ngā mihi ki a koutou. I'd like to thank the Mayor and the councillors for your opportunity to speak to your annual plan review. The Trust would also like to thank the Mayor for the assignment of Councillor Richard McGrath to a child-friendly portfolio on our Trust. We have appreciated having Richard with us and his excellent input. We would also like to acknowledge the support and appreciation the Council has shown this week following the death of trustee Minnie Ratama. Our submission is asking you to change the way in which you operate. We are calling for the development of a child-friendly plan based on genuine co-production and co-development in a radical departure from the Council's current approach. Sustaining and enhancing social cohesion should be a collective priority as we move forward from COVID-19. Ruptures such as COVID-19 should change the way governments, local and central, operate. Hei Oranga Hou, Social Cohesion in a Post-COVID World, the article by Paul Spoonley supports this. For over 30 years, the Pilot City Trust has sought ways to enhance social cohesion. Despite having had dynamic, high-quality membership, the Trust has failed to deliver on this aspiration. We believe that only through genuine, citywide collaboration we meet the vision of a kind, fair city. The time is right now. Developing a child-friendly city plan is a way to build social cohesion. The Council is the only body that can lead this. Social cohesion is the presence of high levels of trust, a sense of belonging, a willingness to participate, and a desire to help others, all supported by policies that ensure social and economic inclusion. COVID lockdown showed there were latent levels of trust, belonging, willingness to participate, and a desire to help others. The seeds of social cohesion are alive and well in Napier. Lockdown demonstrated the strengths that abound in our city. Had the Council actioned our proposal, Te Ahi Ka, we would have been able to quantify this. Since the Napier Pilot City Trust was established in the 1980s, it has been motivated to make Napier a kinder and fairer and friendlier city that is vibrant, engaged and inclusive. Or as you say, the best city in New Zealand in which to live, work, raise a family and enjoy a safe and satisfying life. In our submission to the annual plan, we focus on the need to engage with all our communities so they develop the confidence to participate in local decision making to meet the current and future needs of Napier. We acknowledge the work of the Community Services Department with the empathy interviewing and see this as an encouraging sign, but only a starting point. We believe the development of a co-produced and co-developed child-friendly plan for the city is an ideal way for the Council to engage its diverse communities genuinely and richly. So I presume you've all seen our submission to the annual plan? You don't want me to, would you like me to read it?
We have that, Joan.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you. Any questions, please? Or
Right.
comments?
Yep, lovely. Do we have any questions from elected members? Councillor Taylor.
Got it. Over the years and involvement with Pat and the Trust, there seems to be a slight change of focus from previous years, but I'm particularly interested in, you emphasise a child-friendly city, where I'd like you to make comment where some research tends to suggest that an age-friendly city encompasses children right through to the elderly as far as encouraging social cohesion. So I'm interested in why you have a focus on rangatahi and children rather than an age-friendly city focus.
Yeah, thanks, Graham. And it's great to see that the council has an active, age-friendly approach, which all of us probably in the room appreciate. As educationalists and people who work with young people, we know that the seeds of a successful life are sown at a young age. And if we don't have a city that's nurturing and looking after our rangatahi and our tamariki, there's no point in trying to look after the old people. Because people who aren't looked after and nourished well when they're young actually don't become old citizens, they die. They die early through poverty and lots of other reasons. And I think there are a lot of good stats that would support that as well if you look at the demographic profile of our suburbs. But also I think we want to focus on a child-friendly plan as a way of enhancing consultation and engagement in the community. I think you'll see later this morning when Pat's presenting the wonderful work that a small group of Maraenui students did when they were asked how we could make Maraenui more child-friendly. And their presentation is very impressive. So we see by pushing for good co-production, co-development of a plan around child-friendly city, we will get the genuine ideas of young people and old people on what that would look like in Napier.
Thank you.
Councillor Price.
I don't know if you were here this morning when the presentation was done for a youth impact program.
No,
Aware of that?
no.
I just maybe follow up and have a look at it. We can get it to you, but I'll be interested in your thoughts on that. Like that's getting 40 youth for a 2-week program over Christmas where they're taken te Aoti and family involvement. Just wondering where you see that.
Look, any program that's engaging with youth is fantastic and usually well motivated, but I think it needs to be within the context of a whole city approach. Like there's no point in saying we've got a little bit of a problem here, let's try and fix it, but we'll carry on as normal. I think if we have a wider lens over how do we make Napier more child friendly, we get support for initiatives like the extra basketball courts out of Peterborough Green, for instance, which is great, Keith, you know, I know you support that. But if we're, in everything that the city does, we're thinking about, will this enhance the way our children grow up and become contributing? Like if kids get a chance to say, this is how we'd like our city to look, and they're listened to, they're going to be wanting to vote in local elections and be involved, and we'll have an active community, which makes us stronger.
Also, we don't know what the child-friendly city will look like because that's up to the city to decide with the consultative processes. So there are models, there's UNESCO, there's the World Health Organisation, and there's health promotion theories as well, but they all start with engagement. And then the collaboration out of that will come what this particular model looks like in our city. You know, we're all aware of the inequalities in our city, and it's engaging with those groups that is particularly important because the groups not suffering from the inequalities make their needs known. So, so that's kind of, I think, Pat is working on the ground, whereas we are working upstream. So that's why we're here today. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Tapani and then we'll take Councillor Brown as our last question.
Kia ora kōrua. My question to you is around your submission indicates that the Trust has a long history in Napier and what would otherwise be a good foundational relationship with Napier City Council. But you've also implicated that there's a level of change and a level of urgency in the social cohesion of our community that might dictate a fresh or innovative approach. So do you feel that that approach is best led from within council, given your experience and knowing that we're a large organisation, subject to a number of acts and we've got a huge schedule of work, etc., or do you see that there might be another, what does this innovative approach look like and what would be the first step for council if there was any interest in progressing that?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Dabene. Yeah, it's actually a really good question because we toyed with rushing on ourselves and meeting with schools. In fact, Pat has been very critical of our lack of action around the child-friendly strategy. But we're very aware that as a small trust with few resources, we don't have the capacity to facilitate it. We actually think the consultation can happen quite easily. You actually go out and meet with existing community groups. You know, the Pilot City Trust brought neighbourhood support to Napier. We'd like to see that enhanced greatly too. That's another idea. But we think there are existing mechanisms within the city. But what we need to have on board is the council to support us with your networks and with your staff that are able to do some of the collation. Like, we can't do that physically. We look at a partnership. We'd love to partner with the council, with EIT, with the Taiwhenua. You know, we see them as our prime partners to do this. But in the end, it's the City Council that are the prime coordinators.
And our last question, Councillor Brown.
Kia ora. Mine's a quick one. You mentioned that if we'd followed your plan, and I missed the name of it, sorry, that we would be able to measure the stats. Could you direct me how I could find out more about that plan?
Right. You want me to talk to it or can you? Okay. That was a plan that we put forward talking about engaging with small groups of the community, like around a fire. Not necessary, but in that same theoretical, like sitting in a group, a non-threatening group with people discussing about how they were impacted by COVID, what were the good things, what were the bad things, how we could move forward.
Okay, so it's...
And how we could be better prepared if it happened again.
And now it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are we better prepared?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Kia ora. Thank you guys very much for your presentation.
Thank you for having us.
Lovely. I'd like to welcome Gordon. If we have...
Strategies, where do our strategies end up? In the drawer. Hey, take down the next one.
And Robin's not. Okay. Cool. Bruce, if you wouldn't mind, would you mind being our next one up? Lovely.
Just gonna give you a hand out.
Oh, no. Thank you.
565.
So we're just going to have Bruce from Grey Power up next, and then we will come back with Gordon and Robin when they arrive.
No, what have we gone to?
So,
656.
656.
It's got Maxi's number.
Kia ora, welcome. Now, just a reminder, we have 10 minutes, and there'll be a bell at 8 and 2 at 10.
I thought I might have had a bit longer because we're early.
Don't push me.
Nice one, Bruce. Seems fair.
Kia ora, everyone. Now, our submission, you've got... Oh, by the way, this is Isabel Wood. She's our secretary for Grey Power. She's come to support me today, which I really appreciate. And if you're looking for a good secretary, this is the lady. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. I haven't rewritten notes or anything. I'm just using the submission that we sent to you. I want to elaborate on just one or two things as we go through it. But congratulations on being elected as the new council, 2019-22. Grey Power has enjoyed a generally positive relationship with previous councils and are confident this will continue and grow. We would like to thank Council for your support for the older people during the lockdown, those in your flats and those referred through Age Concern. And I must mention Greg. He's the one I do know that went out of his way to support our people, the older persons, and we really appreciated that. And I know others did too, but Greg I know personally, and made contact with us to assist us, which was really great. Thank you for the opportunity to present to you in person this year. We do get this opportunity from year to year, and unfortunately, as we move through this, I was reading it and I'm thinking we keep talking about the same thing, so just excuse me for that, but we are an advocacy group, and there is key issues that affect the older persons, and not so old sometimes, which need to be, we just got to keep at it and hope for improvement. So, as an advocacy group for the over 50s, we believe holding hearings is more democratic and effective in sharing community voices. As well, we appreciate the wide availability of your easy-to-read consultation booklet. Yes, it was. When I read through this, it was so much easier. You highlighted the concerns, you shared the options, and it was very easy to understand. And so we appreciate that. And we appreciate the wide availability of I've just said that, so that's okay. Grey Power, of course, someone mentioned in the 80s, we've been around since 1986, quite a while now, with over 1,000 members. Last count we were up just getting close to 1,500, so we are growing. Most of them take an active interest. Now, you know, when you came and spoke to us, we had full houses. The regional council were first 1 month, then yourselves the second month. Why I'm saying that is because the older persons, the mature seniors, do take an interest in what happens in their town, particularly with politics and what's going on at the moment. I'm hoping our next meeting's next week. We have candidates coming. It's questionable at this point after last night's news. But what I'm saying is the people do show an interest, and that proved the point when they came and listened to yourselves last year. We do a newsletter. Now, I gave you the newsletter that's just come off the press last week. It features Kirsten, the Mayor, in there, plus our submissions, letting our people know what we're doing. But particularly, now I'm jumping the gun on my notes here, but Kirsten came and spoke to us 2 weeks ago. It was our first meeting back from the shutdown, and we had no idea whether people were going to come in for the first meeting back, and we were very, very surprised, but we had about 180 people came and listened. So we had our AGM. They didn't come about that. They wanted to hear the Mayor talking. So that was very nice, and we really appreciated her input in answering our questions. We also get involved. It's got in those notes here. We have been involved. We actually are involved, and we have been to some of these meetings already. The Positive Ageing Trust, which you're part of, and Greg comes to that on your behalf, in Hastings. The Hawke's Bay District Health Board, we've had a meeting already about, we do that every 4 months, or 3 months, sorry, and Isabel and myself go to that, and we meet up with Age Concern and other prominent associations, sharing our concerns. We don't always get what we want, but we still have to share and put our point across. We get that opportunity. Just moving down a wee bit. The bottom paragraph of this page, our submission, we appreciated the positive ways in which the council has vastly improved excuse me, communications to our citizens. And I'm talking about the live streaming meetings. And I was going to say something about it. I've never been on TV before, so I can't really wave to Mum because you're not here. But yeah, that's very nice. Town huddles, I've been to one or two of those. Facebook updates. Most of us older people through the shutdown, we managed to get through it. We come from a school where our parents were quite tough on us and disciplined us to do things which needed to be done at the time through hardships, etc. And as Greg will know, and I will know because we on the phone to many, many people, not many people got anxious or overly concerned because we managed ourselves. But listening to the Mayor share with us and bringing us up to date, particularly after Jacinda did, was really great to hear because it was all positive. There's so much negative stuff thrown at us. That's when people get depressed and upset. But hearing the two ladies speak and others in a positive way, we really, really appreciate that. You're very transparent, and we're really happy about that. Now, the two main concerns that we have is the rates. And we keep saying this each time, but we have to say it because our people, now there's approximately 14,000 people over the age of 65. Out of that, there's about 20% who are on the breadline. In other words, they live off the superannuation that they get. And the cost of living these days, and it's always the way, I know that, doesn't make, apart from the rates, now we always want to pay our rates, but you got the cost of living of food and the power, though we got a subsidy, and that really, really helped, particularly through the colder months. At least the shutdown wasn't so cold, but we can get outside and get some fresh air. Insurances. The biggest cost, one of the biggest costs, which is health, with teeth and hearing and eyes. All those are very, very expensive. And of course, when you get the rates and you think, how am I going to pay this? I'm talking about the lower end of the scale, yeah. And one of the things I was going to ask you to do, if you can, I know central government's got to do with this. Rates, for example, I've taken a figure from our own example, 2,300. There's approximately 12,000 people at the age 65 plus. I mentioned all that. Now, single income annually, if you're a single person getting the super, they get the chance to get the rebate. Double, if you're a couple, you don't, because the criteria is 37,000. Two people together, it's actually 38,000. So really, it helps the single person whose fixed income is that, and double, husband and wife with no other income, they can't apply for it because they're just over the criteria. So we're just going to ask, if I won't go any further because the bell's gone. The living wage aspect on our submission was to do with appreciation for our town being one of the cleanest, nicest, wonderful place to live in, and it's all thanks to the troops on the ground, plus other people I know, but we just think the living wage to those who deserve it should get it, hence that submission. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce, and thank you, Isabel,
Gosh, that 10 minutes went quick,
support. I'd just like to ask if there's any questions from our elected members. Councillor McGrath.
Just like to make a comment. It's always good to hear feedback about our teams who are out there doing it, and them getting some positive feedback. It's great. Thank you for that.
I appreciate that. We love being part of it. So, yeah, we're here. We've already had a meeting with the positive ageing strategy. No, it's to do with the International Day of the Older Person coming up in October, but that came up as well. So we're going to get back into that. So.
Thank you, Bruce. And I have one more question from Councillor Tapani.
Greetings.
Sure.
Thank you for your submission and coming out on a cold, wet day. Especially, I know we've got a lot of demands today, so it's great to see you both. My question is around your acknowledgements in the printed submission form and the ongoing opportunities to present in a public forum such as this. So COVID, for example, accelerated our use of digital streams, Zooming and doing everything through PCs. So I'm just wondering, as we go forward, have you got any expression you'd like to make around maintaining those aspects, or perhaps something different that might be more effective, that will help us to be more connected to the older bracket within our communities?
Good question. I'm not sure how to answer that. What you're doing is great, but not all the older people have digital contact. That's why Age Concern with the shutdown phoned many peoples. I think they had 70 people on the phones. We had 23 in Great Power, and that contact through the phone was very beneficial. So what you do doesn't go to everybody for that very reason. The government did put 700,000 across for upskilling, the gold card, but to include the digital training, particularly with people on smartphones. But again, we're in our 70s, but people in the 80s and 90s and a bit older, because I've met those as well, they don't understand all that technology. The hardest part at the moment, for instance, is checks. How do you pay something when you're so used to paying checks? So the communication is important, what we've said. Always room for improvement, whatever you do, but some of us, a bit older ones, find it hard to keep up to date with that. So keep it simple, really. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Bruce.
Thank you, Bruce.
Not an
And
easy one,
Isabel,
that one.
thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Pleasure.
you.
Yep.
Right, I'd just like to call, do we have submitter Gordon Sampson? Gordon, thank you, if you'd like to come up. So Gordon is presenting to us and his submission is on page 362 of our attachments. Kia ora, welcome Gordon, at your leisure.
Oh, hi, and thanks for giving me the chance to present this submission. Just a little bit of background about me. I'm presenting this submission personally, but I've run my own building company in Napier for 22 years. I'm a member of the Registered Master Builders Executive Committee and also a life member of Registered Master Builders. I'm on the EIT Trades Advisory Group and also consult for several other building companies around the North Island. So initially I sent this document to Kirsten Wise not long after the election, and she suggested this was the best forum to present it, so that's why I've presented it. And it relates around swimming pools and aquatic bits and pieces. And it was not long after I'd actually been in Christchurch and visited the aquatic centre down there that the Prebenston Drive Centre was modelled from. So I thought that was a nice facility, but I just thought in Hawke's Bay and Napier we could actually do our own thing and do something probably better. And so my proposal that I'd like to discuss has got a few prongs, and the first one is obviously not to proceed with Prebenston Drive, and I see that's under review now anyway. Also retain the core facilities at the Onikawa Aquatic Centre, so that it gives recreational swimmers somewhere to go. Basically, I'll skip number 3 for now because we'll talk about that in a bit more detail. Pandora Ponds, that area is already budgeted over the next 3 to 4 years, I believe, to improve that. But by generating some funds, we could accelerate that and have good outdoor swimming areas there. And number 5 is to generate some income, sell off Prebenston Drive, but potentially develop it as a transitional type area between sort of Onikawa and Parklands, so it'd be a multi-use type zoning. So number 3 is about creating an artificial beach and possibly wave pool at Anderson Park. So Anderson Park's already a very popular playground area, very nice playground area. And I've put in the proposal a few ideas that are similar overseas, like Brisbane, who've got their South Beach, Cairns have got a inner city beach, and there's one in South Africa that's at Sun City, that's a beach and a wave pool. So that's my sort of thoughts around there. With the development of Prebenston Drive, my thoughts are there's quite a demand for people with camper vans and remote vehicles, and quite a demand for people that run home businesses. So part of that area there could be sort of semi-large garaging, so people could park their camper vans inside and just run their home business from inside a big garage. And it's lighter industry than is in Onikawa, but with a mix of residential in there as well. And by developing that, we're not only saving $41 million of building the pool, but we're potentially making between, I think, $12 to $18 million out of land sales. So you add those two together, and you've got quite a big budget to spend on aquatic areas. And we've received a boost in the last couple of weeks with the sports park over in Hastings, having their pool facility. I think 35 million, I think they got funded to build that Olympic-sized pool, and also a recreation pool alongside that. So that's just some ideas I had. I've got 3 adult children that live in Hawke's Bay and 2 grandchildren, so we're vested in long term to make sure that Napier is a pretty cool place for people to live and grow up in.
Thank you, Gordon. I'd just like to open up for questions, if anyone had any. Councillor Mawson.
Yeah, thanks for your submission. Just a quick question. Have you thought about with the wave pool, what it could be used for in the off seasons? I mean, obviously it's going to sit there moaning whether or not ducks would sit on it.
On a day like today, yeah. No, there is. I haven't gone into too much detail. I was simply sort of sketching down some ideas. I know there's like canoe polo and those sort of things operate all year round, so possibly those sort of things. And whether it contains a indoor portion of facility or is just straight outdoor would be part of sort of the discussion to have.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Gordon. I've got Councillor Brown.
Thank you for that. I'm intrigued by this outdoor or artificial beach. Do they operate more like a pool in that you've got to chlorinate them and maintain the water, or is there some form of
I don't know the details of it, but I know in Cairns it's there's a lot of sand around it, so people basically picnic there on the sand and just paddle. The South Bank one in Brisbane, yeah, I don't know how they treat that. Suppose there'd be some water quality control. Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, I think those are all our questions. Thank you very much, Gordon, for your submission.
Thanks for the opportunity. Oh,
Do you have a card?
not on me. I'll email you.
Yeah,
Okay.
cool.
Thanks.
Thank you. Let's see if Robin, yes, Robin is with us. Robin, you're our next submitter. So I'd like to welcome Robin Gwynn, and Robin's submission is on page 596 of our attachments. Robin, would you mind just pausing for us? We've just lost a councillor. I'm sure he'll be back shortly.
It sounds careless.
Yes.
Oh.
We'll see. We'll see. Oh, no, we're just being nice and waiting. Polite.
There he is.
All right, not a problem. Thank you, Robin. We're good to go.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. I hope I can be heard. And congratulations on your election, since it's the first time we've had this chance. The thread binding together many of my comments has to do with our desirable and proper consultation processes, which, as some of you know, is a particular interest of mine. Starting with an absolute regular annual process like this one, on which I really congratulate Council for having it, because it hasn't always happened in recent years. I won't be talking about the library, because I have nothing further to add to what I've said about that, but I will be talking on a range of other subjects. Firstly, water, to which I refer. I wondered whether the tourism aspect of our water quality has been given much consideration in Council. Maybe it has. I noticed when visiting Tauranga that they plug their water quality as a tourist asset of Tauranga. Well, I think our aquifer is actually better than anything Tauranga can produce, and I think we should bear this in mind when looking at the question of chlorination. Consultation on water may be difficult, but what I would like to see, and I would have liked actually for the last year, is to see Council holding a public meeting at which the best advice on what might be called the Dutch or the Christchurch side was presented, and also the best advice on the other side, so that we could all be better informed. Because clearly this is a matter which requires considerable actual knowledge, and most of us in the community don't have it. But I don't want to see our aquifer water adulterated by chlorine without much stronger arguments than I've seen so far. Moving from there to wheelie bins, which I raised again, in this case, to raise the issue of local consultation. I'm aware of it because I live on the hill, and you have a nice picture in your pamphlet which shows how easy it is to push wheelie bins on the flat. It doesn't really apply to me. I come down 11 steps, and some of my neighbours would have considerably more to cope with, and if they're old, this will be difficult for them. But what is striking is that there has never been any discussion with, say, neighbourhood watch groups in our area about what's the sensible way to deal with rubbish collection in our area. Isn't this a natural extension of ward councillors' activities to talk to neighbourhood watch groups and get them involved? I mean, if you have a council decision which clearly affects one particular part of town in a way that it doesn't affect the others, it seems to me it would be sensible if there was some way of making use of that kind of local consultation, because sometimes councillors with the best council, with the best will in the world, doesn't know all the facts. My wife and I were fascinated to discover when someone spoke to us about pedestrian movements down a road near us that the officer in question was quite unaware that pedestrians only moved along one side of the road and not the other. So anything that sort of can localise that sort of consultation would be good. The Aquatic Facility. I comment on that because I went down to Wellington and spent a whole day at the court case. The hearing didn't put council in a good light. Council relied in that court case on a very legalistic argument. It got away with it, just. I think it must have been a fairly close-run thing. But the council's lawyer could not dispute the other side's case, which was put succinctly by the remark that council changed track and left its communities behind at the railway station. And it was certainly deeply concerning to me to hear from the evidence presented and not disputed by the council's lawyer that at the time of the long-term plan hearings, councillors were urged by council officials not to pay any attention to oral submissions. I hope that's not the case today, otherwise I'm wasting my time and you're all wasting yours. Surely there are better ways for us as a community to be achieving progress, and they're ways that require trust and openness and continuing discussion, not a minimal legal requirement to score a bare pass mark. And I hope never again to see a council try and take decisions on a project worth more than $40 million without more serious attempt to take their community with them. So I'm looking forward to the discussions that we are going to have on the Aquatic Facility, and I hope they will also include things on questions like what would be the effects on Onikawa, were the pool to be moved from there, and what's the significance of the fact that the highest drowning rates in the country involve Maori, and does that affect where we should be siting our pool? Moving from there to community housing, which is perhaps the thing I want to comment on most. Council has been given a clear steer by government when it returned the 4 well-beings to your care. It's clearly said that you've got a responsibility in the social as well as other areas. So selling or leasing your entire portfolio of housing, I think, is simply not an option. It's been plain for years that Napier has got a real problem with social and emergency housing, and we need more of it. A couple of years ago, local concern was already so high and so well documented by groups like the Napier Family Centre, the Women's Centre and WIT, that after attending a public meeting, my wife and I thought, well, what can we do about it? And what we did about it was to buy a flat and hand it over to WIT to be managed. So that's our statement of concern on this issue. But to see that council is even thinking about getting rid of all its housing stock is appalling. It's exactly where we shouldn't be going. This year's Salvation Army State of the Nation report concludes that change is urgently needed to urgently needed to address its words, the normalised entrenched inequality and poverty in New Zealand. So councils like ours have a role to play in giving a lead, and surely not in running away from the problem. I suggest we should be following the example of Palmerston North. Now, it may be, since you've got a review in place already, that perhaps the councillors have already been to Palmerston North to look to see what they're doing. But they are in the middle of developing 78 brand new units, between 2018 and 2021. That's the sort of example that I feel Napier should be giving, perhaps not on quite that scale. I support the submission made by the Pilot City Trust when it asked for greater emphasis on the social pillar of the council's responsibilities to its citizens. The War Memorial Centre, since we're here, I was surprised that there wasn't anything on the centre, or anything very much. There's a sort of brief mention in the plan, because I don't understand why we haven't had some substantial discussion during the last year. This isn't 30 seconds, is that?
2 more minutes.
2 minutes, thank you. I don't understand why we haven't, because it's only the community that can decide this. Council can't. It's in a trustee role. It must be a community-led decision, and yet there hasn't been a community-led discussion in the last 12 months. So when do we get our chance is probably my question there. And finally, I ought to comment on the last point I made, which had to do with Napier's boundaries. The relative boundaries of Hastings and Napier seem fairly ridiculous to me. They change from time to time, but Napier's at one stage encompassed Clive, and it's been foreshortened, and okay. But what came up during the discussions on amalgamation was that I think it was in the Taradale area, there were a lot of people, or a fairly large number of people, beyond Taradale who relied on Napier for all its services, but were part of Hastings for other purposes. That makes no sense to me. I don't think it's good government. And I think perhaps I would suggest that perhaps the Taradale ward councillors might like to look at this issue and come up with some recommendations as to what would be better boundaries for Napier. So that's a rather a scattergun collection of issues, but you can see the thread that concerns me that tends to come through it, which is about consultation. I think the last term didn't start too well in this regard, and I think things are improving. That's great. Congratulations on that. I hope it continues. And on a personal note, since I live on the hill, and I don't know if it's just the hill, but I never see the Napier Courier, I'd love to find some way of actually hearing about what council's doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Robin. I've got a number of questions, so we will take a little bit of time. Councillor Price.
Just for interest's sake, in relation to the wheelie bins, did you make a submission to that?
Yes, I spoke to it, I remember, or my wife and I did, in Hastings. I remember the now Deputy Mayor was there, and there were other councillors at the time. So the issue was raised, but it never came back to citizens in any form that I could tell. Well, we haven't had any ward meeting in my area for I'm not sure if we've ever had one. We certainly haven't had one for years. So, and it was a specific geographic problem affecting the hill. It didn't affect anywhere else.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I've got one question for you, Robin. Thank you. I always really appreciate and actually enjoy your submissions. And it's around the community housing position that you have, and it's just teasing out a little bit of my thinking, I suppose, in there. And so the question I have is, if leasing to a community housing provider, our stock, allowed us to access government funding and therefore allowed us to upgrade and potentially grow our housing stock, would our means justify the ends?
Yes, it might well in a case like that. I mean,
what concerned me was, as I read the leaflet, it looked as though council was saying, well, here's one option, run away and forget about it. That I do not want. I think we should be going the other way. I'm intrigued by the Palmerston North ones. They've got an open plan set up, and they're trying to sort of put in new stock which has taken the future into account and leave people to be able to live in them for as long as possible. So things like readily accessible showers and all that sort of stuff, and no steps.
Lovely, thank you. There being no other questions, thank you very much, Robin. Do I have soup there? No. And did I see Pat? I did. Hi, Pat. Would you like to be our next submitter? You. You're it, baby. Yes, no problem. Is it candy?
Just a few extras. No bribery, Pat.
Oh, lovely. Thank you. We might ask Anna if she could possibly pass it round. Thank you. So if you pop up here, we'll get those passed around. So we welcome Pat McGill, and Pat's submission is on page 616 of our attachment.
I should be at Minnie's funeral, but I see the mayor's there and probably Maxine, but I said to Minnie before she departed, where shall I be at your funeral here? And she said, come here and keep batting for the Pilot City. So that's why I'm here. Anyway, it's a pleasure. I really, as I finish with the Pilot City, not finished because we're going to be Pilot City whānau. There's plenty of Pilot City whānau out there, but I'd like to thank Mark Cleary, Minnie Ratama, Fran Lowe, Alison Bullock, Joan Plowman, Alwyn Corbin, Russell Fairbrother, and the Napier City Council appointment, Richard McGrath, for sticking to the Pilot City so that we could collectively become a real Pilot City, as we were designated to. So I'll just concentrate on the key points below, or the recommendations, and I've mentioned Kirsten Wise. So as far as I'm concerned, going back to 1975, she's the only leader in the city that I've ever been able to have a consultation with. So I am very grateful, and also the majority of the council itself are looking for better ways for doing things rather than relying on the Napier Court, which I still attend every Wednesday, for sending far many of our citizens to prison or into other places where they shouldn't be, because as yet we have not acknowledged the Treaty of Waitangi. And once we acknowledge the Treaty of Waitangi and the opportunity which gave Maori the opportunity to share in this nation, then our prisons will empty. I noticed you said don't add anything extra to the to my statement, but you'll excuse me saying that. I forgot to put that in. Now, I've put here, record our Ahuriri social history and tell its story as New Zealand's first and only Pilot City. And that's what kept Minnie going, because she read that the government officially acknowledged Napier as a Pilot City to study violence, and that was a government appointment by Anne Herkes in 1986 in designating Napier as a pilot city. Why it didn't take off, it just didn't take off. And to me, that's a leadership role. But you can't blame the past, you've got to look to the future. And as far as I'm concerned, the future of the city looks really bright. The second point is honour the people who have contributed in the past by reinstating the government designation as Napier as a pilot city. The third one is revive the brilliant mural in the foyer of the Napier Court by iconic artist Sandy Adsett and refresh the Napier Pilot City logos in the stairs of the Napier and Family Court. The logos say Napier is a bicultural city with an opportunity to work together for the betterment of the city, but it just sits there on the wall, and yet the bottom of this Sandy Adsett feature, at court I tell a lot of people in the court itself to have a bit of hope and read what Sandy Adsett has stated, and what Sandy Adsett in this brilliant mural says: if we work together with a bicultural partnership, peace will arrive, peace will result. But there it just sits, and there our logo just sits. So there's an opportunity there itself to revive what the vision of the city. Re-establish and reinvigorate our Napier City Community Development Unit. I shouldn't have had to be working for nothing since 1970 on a job that should have been done after the Internal Affairs designated Beverley Barron on a study, paid for it for 3 years. The recommendations were made to the council that the council and the government departments work together. There was never an appointment because there was never a leader in the city that was interested in it. It's time now that the Tai Whenua has asked for a partnership with a pilot city. Somebody replaces me and Minnie as a foot soldier, and it keeps it going with some consistency and ongoing, in other words, capturing the people and enthusing the people of the past who were honoured as pilot city people in 1975. And that came, Napier really got it on the cheek because the Internal Affairs paid 3 years study on Napier itself with recommendations that were made, and the council and the government departments completed the recommendations. The last recommendation that was made was for an urban marae. So when you do it consistently with a plan, great things can happen. Establish our suburban shopping centres such as Maraenui as a child-friendly Maraenui. Ahuriri Napier, and provide resources so our children can have safe fun. Now, I'll just mention this because I've got to laugh really, because the last time I came and made the presentation with John Wise assisting me on the basis of a UNICEF child-friendly city. We didn't want a UNICEF child-friendly, we wanted a Napier child-friendly city. But afterwards I knew, because I was told that the council wasn't interested in becoming a pilot city. So Roy Sy, who was a councillor, came to me and said, Pat, go out into the community and find some people who support it. So I went out and I found about 70 citizens, birthright, Bernardo's. Of course we should be a pilot city. So with that, Roy Sy went into education, and I went back to Faye White at the time, and she said, well, Bill doesn't want it, so that was Bill doesn't want it. So I went back to education, and I said, Roy, if I go round every school and every kohanga rau in Napier and ask the principals and the staff whether they want to be a child-friendly city, can I have your permission? And he said, certainly. So it took me 3 days, but I started at Eskdale and finished at Miani or somewhere, and then did the Kohangas. And great conversations. Yes, we all want to bet. I doubt even with that evidence it would have made any difference to past council. But anyway, out of the blue, the bilingual school of the Maraenui youth themselves develop how they see a pilot city. So really, when you study what a pilot city means to youth, it's all listed in there for us. So I think Napier's got a huge opportunity to develop a pilot city as to what the children from the bilingual school had said. And they'll copy it again. We'll get them to copy it again every year. But it just simply says we want to be safe. We want peace between the gangs. Too much alcohol, da-da-da, it's beautiful. So I conclude my contribution from the kids from the school. Okay. Oh,
They know me.
this lady's come to support me. She's chairman of the Pilot City Trust. Sorry, I didn't introduce.
Oh, they know me.
Yes, Pat, Pat, before you go, Pat,
Oh, yeah.
before you go, just there may be a couple of questions. So thank you very much for your submission.
There might be a couple of questions. Just sit down.
Oh, right.
No, just... Sorry, Pat. Just saying there might be some questions from elected members. So thank you very much for your submission. And we'll just see if there are any. I thought no. So you are all good to go.
Sorry, you can stand up again now. There's no questions.
Oh, good. Anyway, I think you're a really good council, and we've all got to be positive. Because I'll just finish off. Prisons do stink.
Stink.
Thank you, Pat
In
and
more ways
Joan.
than one.
Do we have Sukhdeep here? He's running a bit late. Okay. That's all right. I may make the call and just see if we have any other submitters in the room. Do we have any other submitters in the room? No. Okay. I think we will break then, team, and we are due to be back here at 1:30. Yes, he's running late.
Wait a minute.
Is that a break?
Yeah, we'll break now, and we'll. If everyone just wouldn't mind hanging around for 10 minutes, we'll see if our last submitter arrives.